we was talking about her earlier, weren't we, Gabe? We had a discussion about this, like on the phone, and yeah, we'll talk about it a bit more in this episode. Welcome everyone, everywhere to the Elite Thinking Club. I'm Chris, Jules, Julien, and I'm joined tonight by my co-hosts Michael and Liz. You guys good?
Yeah.
Always good, thank you.
Come on. And we're also joined by a special guest tonight, Gabe, all the way from Florida. Gabriel is at the Indomitable Black Man on TikTok and YouTube. So yeah, you can find links to his stuff there. But Gabe, welcome to the Elite Thinking Club, my friend. Welcome.
Welcome.
It's good. Nah, thank you so much for being here. Obviously, I saw you on TikTok. You'd made a post that was about well, it must have reached over 1 million views, and it was like about gentle parenting. And the video showed a child like opening a door to, I don't know, under the kitchen sink or something, and the mother was asking it over and over and over, let go of the door, let go of the door. And then she just screamed at him and let out like a really aggressive attack. And what you did was you obviously stitched the video and explained how that isn't the best way to approach a young child. Yeah, and then you went on to explain what gentle parenting is. And then it just sparked my interest. And then I obviously messaged you and said, can you join us for an episode? And you said, yeah, of course. And then here we are. So I will, I'll tag the link to that video in this description, and then you guys can check it out and watch for yourself. But other than that, yeah, welcome, Gabe. Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still on. We just can't.
Okay. All right. I lost him. I was like, technical difficulty again. No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Can see all of you. But I'm still trying to be on, and I'll just continue as if nothing's wrong.
It's all right. Okay, so I love that we actually might have a bit of technical difficulty, because this again addresses something that we as adults can understand and actually can like fathom. We can get our heads around that sometimes not everything always works out the way you want it to. But when it comes to children, I suppose that is all a learning process. That is all part of the learning process and the growth, and how we as parents go about, handling it. I suppose there's two different ways to handle it. There's obviously a more appropriate way, and then there's obviously a very inappropriate way. And now that we're living in 2023 with so much facts, evidence to back like how it's more appropriate to handle things in a certain way, Gabe, you're joining us tonight, and hopefully you can shed some light, because am I right, you've done this for now over 15 years, and the last 8 years like a full-on professional career. Cool. Yeah. All right. So my question to the audience. It's all right. It's all right. What we'll do then is I'll pose a question. I'll ask Liz and Michael what they think. I'll ask the viewers what they think. And then, Gabe, if you can then shed the light on whether or not it's right, wrong, and what you would do, then happy days. So the first thing is, Michael, Liz, do you guys know what gentle parenting is?
I've got a rough idea of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think it is?
So instead of like my dad used to do, just slap my hand, it's so I've watched this video, so I kind of understand it. So instead of shouting at them, give them a different option of what you're going to do instead.
Okay.
So take their focus off what they're doing.
All right. And Liz, what is gentle parenting in your eyes?
It's kind of going down to their level and, speaking to them on their level and understanding, and approaching it. We sometimes speak to children like we expect them to know. We're adults, they're children, they don't know. We have to guide them. So I think gentle parenting is where, there's less yelling, less negative use of words, and it's more a sort of gentle approach, coming down to their level and treating them like they are little people, because they are.
They are. That's right. Shout outs to Nadine in the comments there. She's saying allow them to make choices and guide rather than tell them what to do.
Yeah.
You know, I suppose one of the biggest questions from like parents is, I'm a parent, I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me how to raise my kids. And it's hard because, like, I've said this behind the scenes. I said, right, I drive a car. I know how to drive a car. But that doesn't make me Lewis Hamilton. Yeah. It doesn't make me the world's best driver. And I would love to be taught by Lewis Hamilton, because then I could probably get better at driving. I'd have a lot more fun with it. That's for sure. And this obviously for some parents is a hard pill to swallow, but I don't want you to beat yourself up, because I promise you, right? I spent like a year in a children's residential home, and I promise you, a lot of the parents that beat themselves up, right? You are doing so well and so good at raising your children to those that are actually in care. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to compare like that. Some people, it's not their fault, you know, but I'm just saying, don't beat yourself up, right? Flipping out. We don't want to go down that route. We don't want to start telling people, you're a rubbish parent. It's not like that. Gabe, you did a very good explainer video about what you could do in regards to gentle parenting, and it was awesome. It was where you like held up a grey folder and said, you were talking to the camera, you were like, look at me, but no, you held up the grey folder and you was talking, but the attention was at the grey folder, and then you said, now if I told you to, could you mind explaining what I'm trying to say? Because I'm trying to say it, but you obviously know it, you did it. So
okay, so basically, don't look at this water bottle. Don't look at this water bottle. Your eyes are naturally going to go to the water bottle because your brain isn't picking up everything I'm saying and comprehending everything I'm saying like that. It's picking up the bottle. You're going to look at the water bottle. That's what your brain is naturally going to hear most of the time. And because it's in your face, that's what you're going to think of. Now, if I were to say, look at me, more than likely you're going to look at me, because even though this is kind of in here, I'm telling you to look at me. So the principle is, instead of telling a child what they should do, anytime you have a kid that's hitting, you can say, don't hit your kid. They don't necessarily fully grasp the concept of don't. Hands to yourself, or nice hands, or hands down. Something that they can understand is an action that they can do and should be doing right now.
Very well put. So the idea is you draw their attention to just a distraction. Is that right? Something to sort of like steer their, because their brains don't work. Their brains work on, if you would, keywords. So yeah, like you explained. Awesome. And obviously, Gabe, you've wrote a book like The Parenting. No, this is Parenting, Demystifying Parenthood. When did you release that book?
I actually released it of October 2021.
Okay, and I imagine it's been quite a success. I mean, someone else even mentioned you in TikTok about it, tagged you in it, and all that good stuff.
This past October, so we hit it out. I sold like maybe 50 copies. I was just like, okay, whatever, and I kind of just pushed it off my mind. I wrote a book, whatever. Then somebody posted a video of a lady who's having issues with her kids. She recommended my book. I duetted that. That went viral, and my book sales went up. So that's yeah. I've been pretty happy with it.
Awesome.
That's brilliant.
Out of nowhere.
That's good.
And now, am I right in saying that you actually host parent conferences over Zoom? You know, you actually do like conferences.
I do live or something. I'll have like a Q&A and open it up for people to ask questions. But yeah, that's what I do.
Right. You know, it's one of those topics that we haven't explored here at the Elite Thinking Club before, mainly because it's never really come on our radar. But obviously, we like to critical think. We like to take topics and see what really it's all about. And I suppose parenting is such a vital pillar in life, because young minds, young hearts, young people, the only way we're going to make a better future is if obviously we raise them right. And yeah, so I suppose it's a highly needed thing. I mean, there's plenty of parents out there, you know what I mean? I've had them. Yeah, I mean, you've obviously had them. And I suppose all of our life upbringing, I suppose sometimes we can look back and, you know, there's a lot of different phases, I guess. Like you could have resentment, you could have love, you could have, oh, I'm glad I had my parents, or I hate my parents, all these different things that create this person or version of you. And yeah, that brings me on to what I wanted to actually ask. Like, guys, do you believe a lot of who you are right now is down to your parents? Michael, Liz.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I had completely different parents. So my mum was so selfish. Like her life was basically just what pleases her, and my dad was all about his kids. So, but he installed in me. So I learned from my mum not to be selfish, and I
Okay.
learned from my dad to be giving. So that from different angles, but both of them gave me how it is, how I live now. So yeah, there was definitely a big impact on me.
Mm-hmm. And Liz.
We haven't got enough time. Yeah, I mean, I would say that, of course, it's both my parents and how they were and how my childhood was. It's definitely shaped parts of who I am today. I've also had to learn a lot from the mistakes they made. That, you know, in order to kind of heal myself and also understand a lot about my childhood and understand a lot about my parents. So, and that's kind of come with age. But as a kid was quite confusing because obviously my father lived in America, and that's where I started my life. And then obviously my mum and dad divorced and moved over to my mum moved back to the UK. So it was a bit of a funny one, having one parent in another country and you know, going back and forth and things like that. So I think I learned a lot from both of them. Similar to Michael, I learned some of the negatives from my parents. I learned not to have those traits, but also obviously some of those traits will be in me as part of growing up in certain environments and dysfunction and things like that. So yeah, you just kind of have to go with it, really, and try not to be too bad of a human being.
Okay. Were you naughty kids?
Yeah.
I wasn't actually. I was quite a good girl, actually.
Okay. I should have got a beating. I don't care. Like, I was terrible. Someone should have punched me in the face before the world did. Now, I know that a lot of people would hear that and think, what is he going on about? Honestly, my parents, they split up, and I suppose my mum, being the female, I didn't have the male dominance in my life. And I know that I didn't need someone to punch me in the face. That was just a bit extreme. But I don't think it would have done me any harm. I mean, it may have, but it may have also given me a foundation to understand. It would have humbled me. You know what I mean? It would have humbled me. I wouldn't have walked all over my mum the way I did. I wouldn't have took out all my aggression on the world because it wasn't the world's fault, right? And that then brings me on to the question. And I know, Gabriel, anytime, Gabriel, you want to jump in and say whether it's right or wrong or any reasons why it's not, feel free to, because obviously you're the man with the wisdom here. Is spanking or beating your kids outdated? Michael.
So, I mean, we spoke about this a little bit before. So my dad, for the first 16 years, would slap my wrist, like slap my hand, anytime I did anything that he deemed inappropriate. So, but around the same time as when I got to about 16 is when I also learnt respect. So he stopped slapping my wrist at the same time that it stopped hurting. But then I would have rather he slapped me than lose his respect, because then anytime I did something wrong, I was like, oh, my dad's not going to like this. So for me personally, it helped, because when I couldn't understand respect, it was that, oh, I better not do this because I'm going to get a slap. And then it went into, oh, I better not do this because I'm going to lose his respect, which meant, like I said, I'd rather he'd slap me, because it's
So what you've
less
just highlighted,
painful.
Michael, was probably an age or a stage. I don't like the word age. You just probably highlighted a stage there. There was a stage in your growth and development that there was a pinnacle shift in what hurt you more. It wasn't physical pain. It was more respect. It was emotion. It was okay. All right. Liz.
I don't like the thought of being aggressive. I don't like the thought of instilling fear in children. With regards to pain, like they're going to be punished with pain. Parenting is hard, and kids will push your buttons, and there will be times where you will probably raise your voice, just have had enough. But I don't think it teaches them how to deal with their emotions or how to deal with people. I think it gives the wrong message to children if they're hit and spanked and beaten. I just think that it doesn't show them how to deal with situations and emotions and communicate properly. It just shows them that when things get tough or somebody gets angry, to resort to being physical. I just don't think it's the right message.
So this is where a lot of people like myself understand that it is wrong to beat a child because the child doesn't know no better, and in essence they're quite weak. They're weak. They're little babies. They're fragile.
Children should not be beaten.
However, at a certain stage, like I highlighted about myself, I truly believe a punch to the face when I got to a certain stage would have straightened me out. And obviously, I joined the army, which did, and I needed that, probably at the right time. But what we're highlighting now then is the stage, the age, what age group we're working with, because
just to point out, whenever my dad slapped me, it was never in a rage. It was always controlled. So he never he never reacted, slapped me. He was always calm. Like, he was an ex-soldier as well, so he knew how to sort out his emotions. So it was never like, "Well, you done that, bang." It would be, "Right, you shouldn't have done that. Give me your hand." So it was controlled.
So we've just spoke for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and we've got a special guest on, and he's not saying anything.
He's the expert. He needs to talk.
Okay, so Gabe, I want you to take the stage for us a moment here. You've just heard all three of our outlook on, whether spanking or beating a child is outdated, and like we just want to hear from you if it is or if it isn't, and like what the best methods would be out of everything you've just heard. Like, can you express in some words of your wisdom, like what it is that's supposed to be done?
Okay, I am a long-winded person, so I hope that's okay. Especially about things I'm passionate about, and I'm going to say some things. I grew up in the South in America, like in the southern parts of Georgia, like where you spanking, especially in the Black community, the Black and brown community here in the state. But we can take it a step further. Inflicting damage on these children. Even past that, they would do this thing where if a kid was caught lying or stealing, there was never a scenario or situation in which it is okay to put your hands on a child for any reason, especially for correction. Why would you need to pop somebody to teach them a lesson when there's so many other ways to do it? You can't reason with the child. Why would you hit them? So if little Billy is having a tantrum, our first instinct is to hit him. Why are we hitting him? If you are having a tantrum, you have a tantrum, but you won't want somebody to hit you in the middle of your tantrum. You want understanding. You want time to deal with your emotions, and kids don't have the ability to self-regulate. Say, for instance, your kid is getting in trouble at school and they're not passing their grades. Hitting them isn't going to make them magically sit still in school and learn the information. No, you sit down and help them, or you find some way that you can meet that need. Because hitting them it's not teaching. Like, they say something inappropriate. Do would be to explain, hey, this isn't what we say at this time. That's highly inappropriate, because people don't want to hear that. This is something that you say around your friends or around people who deem it appropriate. Like Elizabeth was saying, before. They don't know what's appropriate and what's not. They don't have the ability to self-regulate. And I think we also have to be honest with ourselves. Sometimes we get stressed, and the first thing we think of doing is resorting back to what either our parents did or what we feel like we should do in the moment, which is usually lash out. And the fact that we view the world through a lens of trauma. So if we've grown up with normal, we will respond out of that normalized trauma. We will respond the way we got that trauma inflicted upon us. That's such a stronghold in Black for beating their kids. If you go through 400 years of having to force your children to be compliant to them, otherwise they could get killed. Now that you're able to thrive, where you don't have to worry about that constant threat, you don't have to beat them anymore. You don't have to put your hands on them anymore. You can reason with them now. You can teach them effective communication. You can teach them self-regulation. You can teach them the things that they need to survive in this world now in 2023. So that's why it doesn't have the place that we think it does. And I know you, Chris, you said you were in the military. My dad was also in the military. So was my granddad. My dad was a Marine and my granddad was in the Army. My dad served in Vietnam and my granddad served in World War II. My uncle served in Vietnam. And my dad was a disciplinarian, huge authoritarian. Do as I say. That's it. Not do as I say or else, my way or the highway. No, which is my way. Discipline. Missing the fact that when he was teaching discipline, it was through instruction by repetitive action. Brush your teeth every day. Take a shower every day. Groom yourself every day. Make sure that you're studying every day. Not, I'm going to beat you.
Gabe, that was awesome, by the way. Just literally, we're all just listening very intently, and a lot of the viewers as well, just proper listening to what you said, because you covered a lot of the things that I wanted to ask questions on later on in the episode, which is fine, because then we can obviously go into a bit more detail about them. No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Like, you're in flow, and we didn't want to disturb that. And it was actually really refreshing to hear, because I know that on our personal development and discovery, we do have to look back to look forward, to move forward, the reflection side of things. And, I suppose I don't want to beat my children. I don't want to beat children at all. Like, it's not in my nature to do so, because I come from a place of love. When you were highlighting before about there are some communities who are at threat, that they need to install that they would rather their child fear them because it's for their own protection from others. So they have to install it fast. It did make me think, like, and it's been happening for a long time. Now, is that DNA, like trauma, is that something that's now installed that we need to learn to overwrite? Because I've had this conversation with people before about DNA and how, like, for example, I had an ex-girlfriend. She's a full-on Londoner. Her generations before her from London. And everyone knows the water in London was terrible. It would kill you. So they obviously drank alcohol because it was more cleaner to drink. They're all pissed, obviously, all the time. But I said to her, no wonder you love alcohol so much. It's in your DNA. Like, something in you is telling you to drink that to survive. And that's why you can't say no to it. And we thought about it. But then that also brings me into, like, generational trauma then. If it's installed in your DNA for survival, then no wonder we've still got a lot of people resorting to what they can't almost, they're like they are not biologically. Yeah, biologically, like, their DNA screaming at them, this is how you're supposed to do it. But obviously now we've highlighted, but it's 2023 and we don't live in them times anymore. It's now time to approach things differently with a whole array of things, but this is powerful stuff. Okay, so I know, right? Liz, Michael, Gabe, and I'm going to do it in that order. At what age can a child actually fathom what you're trying to communicate with them?
I would say from when they are starting to talk and to communicate with you, they are they are understanding, like, words, colors, they're recognizing faces. So I think as soon as they can kind of communicate, they're understanding.
Shout outs to Truth Seeker in the comments saying 3. She thinks 3 years old. Okay. Michael, same question.
Yeah, see, I don't think there's really an age. I think it's about the stage of learning. So it's different for every person.
Mm.
So it all depends on how they've been brought up. Because I know people that were talking at a very, very young age, walking at a very, very young age, like before many people do start walking. So I think it's all dependent on the person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the development. Yeah.
Gabe, you've obviously worked with a lot of children. You've done this like professionally for over like 8 years, and you've worked in all different scenarios. What age or what stage can a child actually fathom what you're trying to communicate to them?
Now, that's kind of a loaded question. Is the question actually would be my answer? Progress. I'm not going to teach a 6-year-old about sex education the same way I would teach a 14. Understand or fathom certain things. The same way I was also a 14, 15-year-old, because there are experiences that the 14, 15-year-old has so it really just depends on how old the child is and what you're trying to convey. Now, you can dilute it as much as possible to make it more age based on what level they are, but it really varies on what you're trying to teach.
Yeah, because I've recently discovered that children, when I say children, babies can communicate from like the moment their eyes are open. They're seeing facial expression. Like, and then as obviously they develop, you can move to sign language. They can't speak, but they can still show, and then you can show. And never would a parent at that point ever should need to resort to violence. Like, you shouldn't hit, you wouldn't be, it shouldn't be in your nature to hit a baby that small. So when we get to the point where people are not gentle parenting, they're doing the opposite, it's like, what age do you think it's okay? Like, because it's obviously not. We've already highlighted that in the episode, but why do people think it's okay? Like, what age, what stage, when, or when does it stop? Because if no one's ever put a stop to it, you could be going out of a complete psychopath. You get into an argument at Nando's and then you just start coming at you, and you're thinking, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? But that's really interesting, because forms of communication, I think you highlighted it in a video, Gabriel. You said that as an adult, we have emotions and we express them. We're having a bad day, we tell people, I'm having a bad day, right? Just give me some space. And other adults will respect that and they'll give you some space, because it takes one to know one. You can get the best out of an adult. And then children, I mean, do you think children think any different to us? They could be having a bad day. And if they are having a bad day, then they might cuss, or they might, you know what I mean? You wouldn't beat an adult. So why beat your child? It's interesting.
And that's going to be in their memory as well of their childhood. They're going to remember, being hit by their parents or being beaten by their parents. And I don't think that's a great memory at all. And of course, that has a psychological effect on the child. Even if they love their parents dearly, it will have a psychological effect on their brain neurologically. Trauma responses, and it does change and shape them differently to if they weren't to experience that.
Yeah, I actually heard that. I heard that if you were raised in a household that was used to shouting. It was never about whether or not what you were saying was relevant. It was who could shout the loudest would win.
Yeah.
And if that was, you know, the home that you were raised in, you seek it when you go out to find a partner. If you were, you know, under the influence of an abuser, like for example, someone who beat you up quite a lot, you'd recognize that as home. So you'd seek it in your future. And that too is, yeah, and I've well said, Liz, like really important how it can have such a psychological effect.
There's a true saying, I think, as well. I don't know if I'm going to quote this right, but it's something along the lines, it's easier to build up a child than it is a broken adult.
Wow.
So, like, you know, your childhood affects you. We grow into adults, but like how we start our lives has a massive effect on us and impact on how we turn out as adults. So it's easier to, you know, build a child up than it is to that child turn into a broken adult.
Yeah. Show me the 7-year-old, I'll show you the man.
Yeah.
And it's also important to note that wherever you introduce trauma, usually developing in that area. And so when they're in another situation and they introduce that same stimuli or a similar stimuli, they refer back to where that initial trauma was introduced. So if you see people who have like PTSD, most 18 to 22, right? They'll go to like their 60s and 70s, experience something like fireworks or anything that were battlefields in combat, and they'll immediately revert back to how old they were in that moment, because the brain is, you survived it this time, this is what we did to survive, let's do the same thing again. So imagine if you are 30, 40 years old, somebody's yelling at you like your parents yelled at you when you were a kid, or somebody's hitting you the same way they hit you when you were a kid. More than likely, you're going to revert to that age in the same way you did when you initially got introduced with that trauma.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, obviously, Gabe, the world isn't all fairies and flowers. You know, if you're trying to raise a child in the world that we currently live in, and I know it isn't the 1950s, I know that it's not as difficult. We've got a lot of opportunities now in comparison, got so much more going for us. We're a lot more established through learning, of course, through education, through people experiencing life the way that they have. But the world, if I was to raise a child, gentle parent technique, you know, from your book, from your teachings, I also want to prepare them for the hardships of the world. You know? How do I go about that? How do I teach them how to handle stress, how to handle, you know, I'm not always going to be there for them. I'm not always going to be there.
That's the crux of gentle parenting, or as I call it, authoritative parenting. It's like, just, oh, little Billy, you have to stop doing that. Oh my God, stop. No. It's very much centered around teaching your kids the things that they need to be independent.
Got a bit of radio silence there.
I thought that was just me.
Nice. It's completely just stopped. That's okay. He'll answer it when he's back, no doubt. Gabe, as soon as you're back, just let us know and continue. So yeah, guys, if you haven't done so already and you've watched the episode this far, obviously you know what to do. You know how to do it. You should hit the like button and hit the subscribe button for future episodes, because, you know, we at the Elite Thinking Club are exploring all sorts. And right now we're exploring parenting with Gabriel, and his link is at the Indomitable Black Man on TikTok and here on YouTube. So yeah, definitely check him out when you get a chance. I'll tag him in the description. Gabe, welcome back. Can you continue what you were saying there?
I'm so sorry. Apparently I'm popular and everybody wants to call me now. What's the last thing you ever say?
It's all right, mate. That's all right. Yeah, it's a touch. It's a real powerful subject here. You know what I mean? It's powerful. What was I going to say?
You were saying how
the world isn't all fairies and Yeah, what was it? It wasn't gentle parenting. It was authoritative parenting. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, authoritative parenting, and it's centered around teaching your kids how to be independent, self-sufficient adults. That looks like establishing boundaries. That looks like speaking up for yourself and being assertive. It looks like regulating your own emotions. It doesn't look like just letting you get away with anything or thinking. It's saying, hey, little Billy, this is what's going to happen in the real world. Said, how did you feel when such and such made you feel like this? When they talk to you like that, how can you control your emotions? Conveying your emotions. Let's practice establishing a boundary so it doesn't happen again. Let's practice effective communication. Let's practice pick something. It's about training your child through explicit instruction that gets them to understand how to cope, how to adapt to the real world. It just doesn't involve any kind of beating, or it doesn't involve any kind of. It's basically looking at the world like a school. And actually, let me recant that. It's not looking at, you're going to have anger, you're going to have times of stress, but it looks like teaching your child how to deal with their stress by modeling what that looks like. If I get angry because a child is not doing something that I need, or it doesn't have that, it can be anybody, and I'm frustrated and stressed, I'm not going to withhold. I'm going to let the child know this is why I'm upset. But I'm also going to show them this is how I calm down from that. So you can model that behavior, because people are going to do stuff that piss you off. Recognizing that emotions are indicators and not dictators. And that even though I'm angry, I know how to calm myself down. So I'm not making choices or decisions based off of that. That's what gentle parenting is. So it's being able to navigate a crazy world with so much discipline and so much self-control that nothing can deter you or take away from who you are. Which, if you look at the people who are ill-equipped, they cannot control themselves and they have no idea who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's well said. That is well said. I do honestly thank you so much, Gabriel, for joining us on this episode. Like, it's a subject again that we have never covered before, because we cover so much, but we've never actually thought about doing an episode on gentle parenting. Sometimes you almost assume that everyone kind of knows it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just think, surely you know that by now. And a lot of people got their backs up about how, you know, hitting your child is actually now illegal in the UK. You're not allowed to, right? And people are like, don't tell me what I can and can't do to my child. Like, I made it, you know. I physically made this thing, and I physically care for this thing. And it's like, well, it's not a thing. It's a person, isn't it? Yeah.
What do you feel? Do you feel that the format of gentle parenting works even with children who have behavioural issues, or who have they're not quite able to understand and develop their emotions, because they're behind in their development, neurologically or, you know, physically? Like, how do you think that it what you have written about, what you have learned and what you are promoting, do you feel that is for all children from all walks of life, or do you feel that okay?
So I actually started off my entire professional career doing this. So I practice applied behavioral analysis. ABA is based off of like Pavlovian. It's designed for children who are on the autistic spectrum. It works with them. That's who I started working with first. And I've seen amazing strides, amazing changes in children's behavior, specifically through authoritative parenting. It's evidence-based, recording data, seeing what works for the behavior change. I've seen kids who, like, had a 3-year-old who would hit somebody if anybody said the word no. Just, he went from doing that, being a bully at the center where we were, on the court, but he realized instead of getting mad and getting himself and having a 45-minute tantrum, just going to do something else.
Right.
That parenting can do. And that's for any child across the board. It takes time, patience.
Yeah. And
that's if they're able, though. Because I just want to highlight. Sorry, let's go on this. I'll say it.
I was just going to say the reason I asked that is because I would actually think that gentle parenting would work more positively and probably more successfully with those who have behavioural issues or come from dysfunctional childhoods. Because from my personal experience, I found where you mentioned about the habits and your own father with the getting you in the habit of making your bed, cleaning your teeth. I found that I had to, in order to regulate myself, I learned from certain people who were peers in my childhood. I learned from them that habits and consistency I found really helped me sort of regulate my emotions and helped me sort of just go about my day. So that's why I asked that question, because I just found that interesting. And I thought you would say that those coming from dysfunctional backgrounds or behavioural issues would actually be more of a success rate with the gentle parenting. Most definitely.
Yeah, I wanted to say though, if the child is able, because I remember I was taking care of this child. This child changed my life, by the way. I don't want to say her name. Young girl. She wasn't even lady, young girl, and she had fetal alcohol syndrome. So basically, her parents were alcoholics while she was still baby, and then she grew up with she didn't have the front part of her brain. I think it was the frontal cortex lobe. Yeah. So she actually couldn't, even no matter how hard she tried, she didn't have that part of her brain that processed that. So she only had the other parts. And like Gabe highlighted earlier in the episode about the amygdala, I'm not sure what the other parts are, but yeah, that was the outcome of that. So she's now obviously in care. And I think she most probably will be, like, but it'd be like part-time as she gets older. It was challenging, but she changed my life and I love her. Like, I can't even act like I didn't. I think that I saw in her the innocence that all children have, you know, through the whole process. And I think that's something that we really got to tap into more as a society, because, you know, children are innocent and they are monkey see, monkey do. So yeah, I think gentle parenting is the way forward now in 2023.
I think society needs it 100%. Yeah. We need to build you know, stronger, better, happier, and it starts with the kids, doesn't it? We can all do our bit.
We need to override that DNA trauma, though.
Like, a lot of people think it's something easy. Gentle. I had one of the blocks pulled out by a kid.
Nah, that kid would have got smacked up. I'm sorry.
Listen, no.
If a kid pulls one of my locks out here, I don't care.
Look, real talk. Like, he pulled it out. I saw him yesterday. Like, this is my ace bone comb. Like, this, I want him in my wedding. This kid has my heart. I've worked with him since the COVID shutdown. He pulled out one of my locks, and I stood there and I looked at him in disbelief. The entire room was so quiet, you could hear a rat piss on cotton. And I knew in that moment, if I moved, I would have attacked him. I knew it. I could feel my ancestors like, Gabe, I know you're finna lay him out, right? And at that moment, I thought about everything. One, this kid is really special needs. And it's just my hair. It's not just my hair. But in that moment, I had to tell myself, I got up, I walked out. The other people there, his nurse, his family friend, his brother, were like, hey, we thought you were going to kill him. Like, we would have beat his behind. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. For a temporary moment of frustration, I went outside. I called my friend. I calmed down. I went back in with a smile on my face and continued doing my job.
You have a lot more. It's hard. Yeah, that is hard. I've never had anyone pull out any of my dreadlocks, and I don't. don't want anyone's, like, we've had this conversation, Gabe, on the phone earlier, like talking about dreadlocks. Because for those that ain't seen him, go see him. Man's got amazing dreadlocks. Flipping 10 years. That's quality. And yeah, I got about 5 years on mine, but I know that my dreadlocks are an extension of me. If someone said to me, "Are you ever going to cut your locks off?" No, I'm not. That's like asking me to cut off a limb. It's not going to happen. Okay, because this is deep. This is an extension of my nervous system. You understand? Like, I know this now. I didn't know it before. I just didn't know why I couldn't let them go. Now I do know. I've been educated. Thank you, TikTok. But we had this conversation, Gabe, and it's because I say an extension of our nervous system. This is a natural form of antenna. People don't know that, right? Hair on the human body is our extension of self. Okay, now let's not get it confused. It's not fur. All right, we're not animals like in like wild. It's not fur, but men who can grow long hair, yeah, like dreadlocks, grow it. Yeah, grow your flipping hair. This is an extension of you. It picks up energy around you. And for all those men that suffer from hair loss, no doubt your DNA grows hair elsewhere. You might have a flipping hairy back for all I know, but most, you know what I'm saying, you grow hair. Yeah, that's part of you, fam. That is what you're supposed to grow. So grow it. Yeah, stop cutting off your hair. And I don't know how you held it down, Gabe, because okay, maybe because it comes from a soft place and because you're a professional. In that moment, I might not have uppercutted the kid, but I would have looked at his parent and I'd have been like, punch your kid in the face before the rest of the world does. You know what I'm saying? That's back to my original point.
I really wanted to, but he's honestly the sweetest kid. Like, this kid, when he's not having a seizure and he's not having those outbursts, sweetest kid in the world. Your heart will melt like butter. He is the sweetest kid. He's big though. He's like 5'10". He's like 180 pounds. Like, some bigness to him. But he's sweet when he has those things. And I've seen him for so many years. I what he was like. It's just that I had to remind myself, this is who he is in the moment. I accept him with the behavior until the behavior for him because of his condition. But for other kids, I have seen kids turn around tremendously. There's a lot of healing in raising kids. I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that. One thing I was going to say is I also find that, like, where you said about like the generational, you know, the trauma and like reactionary and how we see through the lens of trauma. So when we're raising our children, we are also sort of repeating behaviors. I also think on top of that, we've also got, I think society makes it really hard as well with parenting, because like if you take your kids out somewhere and they start having a tantrum or they start having a moment where they can't regulate themselves, and you have all these people, you know, at the park or at a play place staring at you, expecting you to suddenly like go over and magic your child out of that behavior or out of that outburst, and the judgment that you get from other people because people expect you to tell your child off, or people expect you to grab their arm and drag them out of there, or whatever it is. But I find that with parenting, it comes from a place of what I've experienced as a child, the generational, but I also find that very early on in my parenting, when the children were very young, when I would go to these like places where there would be a lot of gatherings of children and playing, you know, parks, soft play areas, there would be a lot of judgment in society with regards to how you are with your children. And I found that did shape how I would react and shape how I would be sometimes in these places. And I would always find it conflicting, because I would always feel like I was doing certain things or saying certain things because it was expected of me within society, because there were eyes on me, or because there's teachers saying, oh, they're a little bit bouncy and energetic in class today. Well, kids are supposed to be bouncy. Kids are kids. But when you have a professional telling you, well, they need to sit down and be quiet. Kids don't want to sit down and be quiet. They want to learn. They want to be creative. They want to jump around. They want to use that energy, and they're trying to communicate and get things out. And I know that, and I will say that back now. But early on, I found it quite overwhelming having to kind of be the parent that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Again, being the parent society wanted me to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, Liz. I totally followed you on that. I get exactly what you meant by that.
Yeah.
But there's also appropriate places to take children. Like if you're putting on ice skates, why are you coming to the football stadium? You know what I mean? Go to the hockey. You know what I mean? So one thing that does, I believe, not frustrate me, but whenever I know I'm going to an environment that has got kids, I need to expect for kids to be kids. If I'm going to a park where there's going to be, like, funny enough, a dog park, there's going to be dogs. And guess what dogs do? What dogs do. So when society maybe has that view, or you feel like society has that view, I think society needs to accept that if you're the person putting yourself in the situation where there's likely to be children or likely to be dogs, right? It's your own fault for being there. You can't blame a child for being a child, and you can't blame a dog for being a dog. Do you know what I mean? So, Liz, I totally got what you meant when you said that.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that people feel that way. Some people feel that way. Like, I'm not doing this because it's what I want to do. I'm doing it because you're looking at me and this is what you want me to do. It's quite tough. Yeah.
I've had to stop myself because I've actually felt quite guilty, and I have been guilty of it, and I'll hold my hands up, where I have kind of expected my children, or I've corrected my children, and I've said, you know, we're here, you know, don't do this, don't do that, and you know, just do this, and they're looking at me like, what? As if to say, why bring us here then? You know, why put us in this environment? And I'm doing that to kind of please the surroundings or the people that I've gone into, you know, wherever I've gone, and I've actually stopped myself, and I don't do it now because I've learned from that, and I've found myself, it's just such a conflicting feeling as a parent. You come away and you think, why did I just tell my children to don't do this, don't do that, act like this, act like that, remember where you are, when they're just children? But it's because society makes me feel like children should be seen but not heard, you know, that and I so.
And guess where that mindset?
Yeah, we got a long way to go. Gabe, I believe that you are in, this is probably one of the most maturest episodes we've ever had, in a sense that it's really made me look at like where the thoughts are coming from, because I know initial thoughts, and then I know about controlling initial thoughts to actually listen to who you are rather than what's like conditioned to think. But what you're teaching and what it is that you're doing is quite, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, it's new. It's very, very new. Like, I don't think many people have even heard the term gentle parenting. And if they do hear that term, I'm sure that it will come with an assumption of what they think it is rather than what it actually is. Very, very
So actually,
I like the other. I like his other term.
Authoritative.
Oh, authoritative.
Yeah.
So it's not actually new. So authoritative parenting is really just parenting. The problem is there was a large gap, and we can think, we want to thank Western Christianity for it. And I say Western Christianity, talking specifically about the organization, based in the fact that it pushed the idea of spare the rod, spoil the child, which actually is a phrase from this really nasty poem about getting freaky with your wife. But how it turned into hitting your kids, I don't know. But basically, in Christendom, there was this concept that you have to beat the sin out of the child as early as possible. They are evil, wicked little things, and we have to beat it out of them as early as possible. Everywhere else in the world did not have that mindset. Everywhere else in the world was, no, these are kids, they're precious, let's raise them up by teaching them, passing on cultural norms. That wasn't hitting them like that wasn't a concept. So it's not new. It took a hiatus. It was put on the back burner. Something else replaced it temporarily. And now it's coming back. So it's new to people who didn't have it before, but it's not new as a concept as a whole.
Okay. Wow. Gabe, I think I speak for myself, Michael, and Liz, and just say, like, this has been one hell of an episode, one incredible episode, something that we've honestly have never spoke about before. And we're very grateful for you to be here all the way from Florida. Thank you.
I feel like we've only just.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I feel like we will, if it's okay, invite you back later on, you know, in the year or later on down the line, and hopefully see how far where we are, just see where we are and continue it. Let's see how much society's changed. Let's see how much people are adopting this new, I say not new, it's been around forever, but you know, people are actually catching on. Yeah, renew.
I'm definitely going to get your book, Gabriel. Definitely.
Please,
yes,
thank you.
Shout out to all the viewers. I'm putting all the links to all Gabriel's stuff in the description, so make sure you check it out. Make sure you check him out on TikTok at the Indomitable Black Man and follow, because yeah, it's just content, so much useful content on about like I said at the start, just because I got a car and I know how to drive it doesn't make me Lewis Hamilton. Do you know what I mean? And I could always do with new tips and new pointers of how I could be a better driver. And so that is the metaphor I'm using in regards to this. So Liz, Michael, is there anything else you guys want to add to the episode before we say goodbye?
No, just love the children and gentle parenting.
Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, although my childhood was different to how the gentle parenting was, but I think in my situation and my household, it worked for us. So I'm not saying it would work for anybody else. It's just that's how my household works, and quite well.
You have. I think tough love. I do get what you're saying, Michael. I think we grew up in that generation of kind of tough love, I think.
Yeah,
I would rather
people did it.
Yeah, I mean, we probably grew up in a generation of tough love, but if you go back to your parents,
yeah,
that weren't tough love. They got beaten. And if you go back a bit more, so I suppose, yeah, over the time, we're learning that, well, maybe now, yeah, fast forward, like, since you were kids, since I was a child, 20 years, 25 years time later, it's like, we don't need to do that no more. And that's when our man Gabe steps in. So Gabe, is there anything else that you want to add to the episode before we say goodbye? What can you leave us with?
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
My final thought would be confront your trauma and learn where you act out of your trauma, where you react out of your trauma, and recognize that your kids had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was powerful.
Yeah, I was going to say
powerful.
Powerful, man. He's powerful, telling you. And yeah, make sure you tie them locks up, my brother. Don't let that kid say I'm joking.
Yeah. I'm sitting here petting my dog and I feel like you're trying to bite at him.
Oh yeah, your dog. You have a husky, right? Prince.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Just more jealousy. Live in Florida, a husky.
Yeah.
Oh wow, he's beautiful.
I love that. All those viewing now on the TikTok, you want to head over to the YouTube and watch it back. You can see Gabe, see myself, see Liz and Michael. And yeah, you can watch any other episode of the Elite Thinking Club. We have got loads, okay? If you haven't done so and you've watched the episode up until this point, you know what to do. You know how to do it. I mean, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and yeah, stay tuned for more. So, Liz, Michael, Gabe, guys, thank you so much for being here. I mean, it's now like quite late in the UK. So, you know, it's way past the bedtime, but again, had to do it because obviously of our special guest, Gabe, and I'm so glad that we did. Again, thank you so much for being here, Gabe. Appreciate you, man. And I wish you all the success of your
You're welcome.
More future. You know, it's going to be powerful. I can feel it. It's a good thing. So, everyone viewing right now, from me, Michael, Liz, and Gabe, Peace and love.
Peace and love.